Okay folks, today we're going to try making some bread. And some of you may be familiar with making bread, others may not. So I'm going to start with basic techniques. Number one, the flour. I recently have learned that it's better to weigh the flour than to use cup measurements because the weight is more accurate and it's better. But if you do, you don't want to invest in a scale. The one I have, there are very fancy scales. I had one and I didn't like it. This one's very basic, rather inexpensive, and it's put out by OXO, and it works fine. And I wanted to get a cup measure. What did I, here it is. Excuse me. And I have a cup here on top of it, and you bring it to zero. Can you focus in here? Mm-hmm. Here you can see the zero. So we're coming at zero now. So I'm going to, and I also made myself a little, very amateurish, but it works. I have all the amount of grams for the cups, up to 8 cups, which is about max. And then over here are your divisions, 3/4, half, 2/3, blah, blah, blah. And over here is other things like sugar and other things, their weights. I got this online. You go to a metric thing and ask for metric conversion or something. Can't remember how exactly I did it, but you guys are all bright enough you can figure that one out. So I find that very helpful. So here we go. I need 6 cups of flour. So I look here and I have 780 grams. So I'm still on, I want to go to kilograms. Okay. 780, so in the long run this is rather easy because you don't have to stop and measure, you just pour it into your cup and you keep your eye on the weight.
How much are you looking for?
780. The equivalent is that I've seen is 130 grams for a cup.
You're at 731.
Right there, 730, right there. Okay. Now, what was I going to do? Oh, if you are going to, if you want just don't want to mess in the scale, and you're just going to use cups, the best way for a lot of these tips are for any kind of baking, be it cookies, cakes, or bread. You use another cup, a measuring cup, and instead of dishing your scoop into the flour, which compacts it, you take the other cup and you fill the cup lightly, like this. And then when you get it on top, then you level it off. And there you have a cup of flour that is not compacted into the cup. So anyway, there we are. Now over here, I have proofed some yeast. They call
What does proofing mean,
Mom? Proofing means yeast is a live organism. And you want to test to see if it's still alive. If it's gone beyond its expiration date, it could be dead, and then you won't have the benefit of it. Now this particular one here has had sugar added, and you can see how yeast feeds on sugar. This is quite bubbly. If you don't use sugar, which I don't a lot of times, you just look at it and see if the yeast is bubbling and getting creamy looking. And you usually do this about 5 or 10 minutes ahead of when you're ready to use it. It takes about that long to make sure it's proof. Now, if it just sits there and does nothing, it's no good. Throw it out and get a fresh pack of yeast. When you buy yeast, look at the expiration dates so that you have quite a while to put it on your shelf. If it's been on your shelf for 3 years, throw it away. So,
where should you store yeast?
Once you open it out of the package, it should be in, I buy mine at Costco, as I buy my flour at Costco. I put it in a container and I keep it in the refrigerator. The regular little packages that you buy at the store, I don't think you need to do that. But once it's opened, it should be refrigerated. Okay, now today we're making blue ribbon white bread. So we're going to.
Is this in our cookbook, Grandma?
No, this is a recent recipe.
Oh, but we could add it to the cookbook.
We could add it. It's called blue ribbon white bread, and this I intended to make loaves, and it makes a very nice loaf of bread. But in recent times, I've been making them in rolls for lunches and the like. So we're going to do both today. We're going to make one loaf, and we're going to make rolls. So we started out with a package of yeast in a small bowl. in the sugar, let stand until creamy, about 10 minutes. In a large bowl, we have evaporated milk, not condensed, but evaporated. Pour it into your bowl, along with, what did I do with the cup? A cup,
The honey?
fourth of a cup of warm water. Here's warm. I have it in the fourth of a cup here. Throwing that in. Evaporated fourth of a cup, and a fourth of a cup of melted shortening, which I melted in the microwave. It took it out, and it was solid, and I melted it in the microwave for this, I think, about 30 seconds, I'm not sure, 30 seconds or a minute. Just keep your eye on it. Pour that in there with the milk. And then we also want a fourth of a cup of honey. You put the honey in there. Okay, there's the honey. Okay. A large bowl of evaporated milk, water, shortening, honey, and salt. You have 2 teaspoons of salt. Now when you're using salt and yeast, you don't want the salt to come in direct contact with the yeast. You want to have it show up. I oftentimes mix it with the flour. But this so it doesn't go in direct contact with the yeast, because if it does, it slows down the action of the yeast. So just try to keep them
I thought they just didn't like each other.
2 teaspoons of salt go in here. But by the time the yeast gets in here, the salt's going to be well blended with everything else, so then it's fine. 2 teaspoons. 2 teaspoons. Oh, well. I kind of overdid the salt. Oh, might be salty. Okay.
Throw in a little flour.
Now we let this sit until it's cool, body temperature, because the water was hot, was warm. It's not too bad though. And the yeast seems to be ready. Test the temperature. Okay, now we're going to add the yeast. And again, I've learned this recently, which also proves that you never stop learning when you're cooking. There's always something new to learn. And I've just learned recently that it's better to add the flour a little bit at a time. Don't dump it all in at once. The reason being that if your recipe calls for egg. Okay, a couple of things I forgot to mention. If the temperature of the water that you proof the yeast in should be 105 to 115 degrees. Yeast doesn't like to be too cold or too hot. So if you want to, that's nice. And eggs as well. If you're using eggs in any recipe, bring them to room temperature. And if you forget, put them in a glass of cold water and let them come up a little bit. They function better. I don't know what the science is, but anyway. So now we're going to add the flour. Now, this is a nice mixer. It's a wonderful tool. And we're just going to add flour a little bit at a time. So we put it, and this is a paddle attachment, and I prefer to use the paddle attachment to mix things with. So gradually we add the flour. And let it mix thoroughly. And this is a good tool to have too, a scraper. I said add 2 cups of flour, and I'm kind of guesstimating 2 cups, and then we'll add the rest after this is well mixed. If your recipe calls for egg,